is entrepreneurship and whatnot. So, yeah.
All right. Well, thank you guys for having me out. I too had to look up the word Afro futurism. I was like, I know entrepreneurship, but what is this Afro futurism? So as I was kind of pondering entrepreneurship and where it's going, where it's been, it led me back to where I was inspired. The journey of entrepreneurship for me, I was inspired by the craziest thing, my son's Little League team. So my son played on a Little League team called the New York Cubans. Now, this league named all of their teams after real Negro League baseball teams. So the New York Cubans had the worst record of the season. They literally lost every single game. But, like any good sports metaphor, the Cubans win. What's important about how they won. See, they had a coach that pulled them together after each game, and he talked to them and he said, don't worry about the season. The season is just practice for the playoffs. See, because when you get to the playoffs, we get a clean slate. Everybody's 0-0, and it's one game elimination. All you got to do is win the playoffs. So during the season, he taught them the fundamentals. He taught them how to run, how to catch, how to throw, and most importantly, how to hit. So fast forward to the playoffs. Now they play undefeated black Yankees. When the game was over, only 3 runs scored. The black Yankees had 1, and the Cubans had 2. So the Cubans win. But that wasn't the championship. In order to get to the championship, they had to beat the Cleveland Browns. And now the Cleveland Browns had won this particular tournament 2 years in a row. So the coach pulled the team together and he said, this is what we've been practicing for. Now I want you to put all those fundamentals that we learned into play. And most importantly, I want you to hit every pitch that comes across that plate. Because if you hit, you get some movement in the field. If you got movement, we got a chance to win. These are 8 or 9-year-old kids, right? So these kids swung at everything. I mean, they looked like they were playing tennis. Some looked like they were playing golf. But they hit every ball that came across that plate. And not only did the Cubans win, they won by a slaughter rule. Now, for those of you who might not know what a slaughter rule is, that's when one team is beating another team so badly that they call the game because there's no possible way that this team could catch up. So the Cubans win. Now, why does that matter to us? Because research shows that the highest grossing entrepreneurs today have a college degree and they started their businesses around the age of 45, which means they spent the first season of their lives working for somebody else in corporate America, learning the fundamentals on how to run a business. See, when you work for somebody else, you can kind of test it out on them. But they teach you accounting. They teach you how to budget. You learn how to treat customers, project management, and people management. All things that are necessary to run a successful business. So then, when you're ready to step out, you're over here in the playoffs. Now, you can take all those fundamentals that you learned in corporate America and put them to use for your business. Now it's time for you to start swinging and building wealth for your family and building communities. So, I'll talk to you a little bit about, my business, and we'll talk some more about entrepreneurism. But what I want you to remember, if you forget everything else, is remember the Cubans. Because the Cubans win. They did everything in the right season. And if you do that and keep swinging, then you win as well. So my journey is, I had a 20-year career in HR, and I stepped away from that and opened a paint and sip studio, an art studio, and I had no artistic ability whatsoever. I could not paint, and I definitely did not know how to draw. But in corporate America, I learned if you don't know how to do it, get a subject matter expert. Pay somebody who knows. And so I figured that would work in my business. And it did for a couple of years. Until one day, one of my artists, we got our wires crossed and she didn't show up. And I had left my phone at a party the night before and didn't have a chance to go back and get it. So I couldn't call anybody. So I was sitting there with 22 women, look at me, much like you guys are right now. Like, okay, go. And they drinking, not mocktails. So I learned to paint and draw in 2 hours. The reason I like to tell people that is because there are gifts inside of us that only we can bring to the world. You have a gift, a unique something that's inside of you that nobody else can bring into the world but you. Some people in here might already know what that is. You might be gifted in music or art, or you might already know what that path is for you. Most people don't. So I like to encourage you that while you're in this season, when you're getting educated, you may be working for somebody else, try some things for yourself to see what you're good at. You may not know what it is. I had no idea that I could draw or paint. And now I can leave every single picture in my studio. But you want to work on that, because the future of jobs, of work, is gonna look different. It's gonna look a lot different. And entrepreneurship is on the rise. But I had to do a little research about this Afro futurism, and what I also discovered is that it's not just a look to the future, but also a look at the past. And so that made me look up a few entrepreneurs in the past. And I looked up Black Wall Street. Some of you guys might be familiar with the term Black Wall Street. And I thought that it strictly meant this Tulsa, Oklahoma. For those of you who might not know, and right after the Civil War, Tulsa, Oklahoma became a mecca for black entrepreneurs. It was a thriving community all of its own, black-owned grocery stores, restaurants, movie theaters, banks, and they were thriving. But then there was an incident in 1921 where a black guy and a white woman got on the elevator, and when they got off the elevator, she came off screaming. He was arrested, but it set off the Ku Klux Klan. They came in and they literally destroyed this community. So I've always heard that story. I never actually looked into the details until now. But when I did the research, what I found was that that was not the only Black Wall Street. Black Wall Street was the term that was given to many areas, pockets where there were thriving African American businesses. And so I found one in Richmond, Virginia, where the first African American woman, and not only that, the first woman chartered and ran and served as president of a bank. Her name was Maggie Walker, and the other really amazing thing about Maggie Walker, she was also disabled. She was paralyzed. So that's a nod to what we can do with disabilities. But because of what she set up in that bank, then there was an area in Richmond, Virginia called the Jackson Ward. And that too was a Black Wall Street where there were thriving businesses. It was known as an entertainment district. So people like Bojangles and Lena Horne, you know, they came through and sang in those areas. Now that particular community, the city planners at some point decided that it was necessary to put a highway through it. So 33 blocks of black businesses and homes were eliminated. But Maggie Walker's house is a museum, and if you're in the Richmond, Virginia area, you can go to the Jackson Ward and you can visit her house. It's been restored, and the Historical Society keeps it up. But then the third one I found was in Durham, North Carolina. Now this one really intrigued me because we had an African American owned insurance company, North Carolina Mutual. What was really fascinating about that is John Merrick, who was the founder of the company, was born a slave. So from slavery, he was able to build wealth to open up the business, and he earned his money by being a barber. Wow. He was a barber. He and his uncle started the business, and then they connected with another African American businessman, and they grew that company to, in the 1920s, to be the largest Negro-owned company in the United States. They made multi-million dollars by the time the last of the three passed in 1946, and that company is still thriving today. But what happens when you have those types of businesses, it not only helps them, but could you imagine the generational wealth that was created for that family, especially the one that's still operating today? But the other thing that it does, it builds community. See, it wasn't just one black-owned bank, one black-owned insurance company. Once they were established, then we had restaurants, we had theaters, we had grocery stores, and so it really helps to build up the community. So what does Afro futurism and entrepreneurship look like for tomorrow? Look around this room. You guys are the ones that are going to build the businesses for tomorrow. Now, when I was coming up, we used to watch this cartoon called Dick Tracy. And some of you might know it, but it's really old. It's actually kind of almost too old for me. But during this cartoon, he used to talk in his watch to talk to the other agents. We never in my lifetime thought that we would see people talking into their watches. But as you know, some of you might have some on now. You can talk into your watches. So what the future looks like, it hasn't been invented yet. The next big thing, the next big Facebook or Amazon, it hasn't been invented yet. It's gonna come from your generation. And jobs are not gonna look the same. Work is not gonna look the same. And that's why I encourage you to figure out that unique thing that you have inside that you can bring to the world. Because if the job changed, you know, you used to, if you couldn't do anything else, you'd get a waitress job. Now they got these kiosks on the table that you can put your order in and you can check out. And I'm pretty sure they're working on an AI that'll bring the food right to you. So the future job is going to change. Work is going to look different, and that's why entrepreneurship is on the rise right now. So I encourage you to work on, and if you try different things, listen, I tried a whole lot of things before deja vu stuff, okay? So don't worry about it, and don't even take them as failure if they don't work. I take it as experience. All of those experiences, all those different seasons lead you to where you're going. So definitely try something new. Step out of your comfort zone. Don't be afraid, and don't worry about what people say, because most of them aren't doing anything anyway. So step out and try something new. And what I want to leave you with is remember the Cubans. If you just keep swinging, you can create some generational wealth for your family. You can create some freedom for yourself, and you can help create a thriving community just like we did in the past. We're currently working on it, but the future is right here. So thank you guys for having me out.